I never thought I'd be in this situation, but here I am. I'm Liam, 32M, and for the past 2 years, I've been living alone in the house I once shared with my ex-wife, Tanya, 30F. We were together for 8 years, married for 5 of those. Our story began in college. We met during freshman orientation and hit it off immediately. Tanya was studying marketing, and I was pursuing film studies. We bonded over our shared love for indie movies and obscure bands. Our relationship moved quickly. By our junior year, we were living together in a tiny off-campus apartment. After graduation, we both landed entry-level jobs in the city, Tanya at a marketing firm and me as a production assistant for a local film company. We got married a year later in a small ceremony with just our closest friends and family. For the first few years, everything was great. We were young, in love, and building our careers. We bought our house in the suburbs 3 years into our marriage. It was a fixer-upper, but we spent weekends painting walls and refinishing floors, turning it into our dream home. But somewhere along the way, things started to change. Tanya's career took off. She was promoted rapidly, working longer hours and traveling more. Meanwhile, I was still struggling to move up in the film industry. The irregular hours and frequent travel for shoots started to take a toll on our relationship. We began to grow apart, spending less and less time together. We tried to make it work. We went to couples counseling, planned date nights, even took a second honeymoon. But in the end, we had to face the truth. We wanted different things in life. Tanya was focused on climbing the corporate ladder, while I was still chasing my dream of becoming a director. The divorce was amicable. We both agreed it was for the best. I kept the house because it was closer to my work, and Tanya moved into a sleek downtown apartment that better suited her new lifestyle. We divided our assets fairly and went our separate ways. For the first year after the divorce, everything was fine. I threw myself into my work, finally landing an assistant director position on some bigger projects. The irregular hours and frequent travel became a welcome distraction from the emptiness of the house. But about 6 months ago, strange things started happening. It began with small, easily dismissible incidents. I'd come home from a shoot to find my favorite coffee mug in a different cupboard, or the throw pillows on the couch arranged differently than how I left them. At first, I chalked it up to stress and fatigue playing tricks on my mind. Then things escalated. I started noticing food missing from the fridge, not everything, just specific items. The fancy French cheese I splurged on as a treat for myself. The expensive bottle of scotch my dad gave me for my 30th birthday. Once, I even found dirty dishes in the sink when I was sure I'd cleaned everything before leaving for a 2-week shoot in Vancouver. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was more forgetful than I realized. Maybe I was sleepwalking or had some sort of stress-induced memory loss. I even wondered if I had a carbon monoxide leak making me forget things, so I had the house checked, but everything was fine. The incident that finally convinced me something was really wrong happened last month. I returned from a week-long shoot in New York to find my Netflix watchlist filled with shows I'd never heard of, let alone watched. There were half-finished episodes of reality TV shows I wouldn't be caught dead watching. That's when I knew someone had been in my house. I called my best friend, Randy, 33M, in a panic. Randy and I have been friends since high school. He was my best man at my wedding and has been my rock through the divorce and everything after. I told him everything that had been happening, half expecting him to think I was losing my mind. But Randy took me seriously. He suggested I install security cameras, just to be safe. At first, I balked at the idea. It seemed so extreme, so paranoid. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. If nothing else, it would give me peace of mind. So, I took Randy's advice and had a security company install cameras throughout the house. They showed me how to access the footage from my phone, which was pretty nifty. Last week, I had to go on another business trip, this time for 10 days. We were shooting on location in New Zealand for a big-budget fantasy film. It was an exciting project, and normally I would have been thrilled about the opportunity. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease about leaving my house again. The shoot was intense, 14-hour days, difficult terrain, and unpredictable weather. I barely had time to think about what might be happening back home. But on the flight back, anxiety started to gnaw at me. What would I find when I got home? Had anything happened while I was gone? As soon as I walked through my front door, I pulled out my phone and accessed the camera footage. What I saw made my blood run cold. My ex-wife, Tanya, was in my house. She had a key and was walking around like she still lived there. She came in the day after I left and stayed for the entire 10 days, only leaving a few hours before I was due back. I watched in disbelief as Tanya slept in my bed, used my shower, ate my food, and even had friends over for dinner one night. She did laundry, cleaned the house, and generally acted like she was still living there. It was surreal and deeply disturbing. I couldn't understand why she was doing this. We hadn't spoken in months, and our divorce was final. There was no reason for her to be in my house. I felt violated and angry, but also confused. Why would Tanya, who had always been so career-focused and independent, risk breaking the law just to stay in our old house? I called Randy again and told him what I'd discovered. He was as shocked as I was and advised me to call the police. But I hesitated. Part of me wanted to confront Tanya first, to understand why she was doing this. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation? It seemed so out of character for the Tanya I knew, or thought I knew. I tried calling Tanya, but she didn't answer. I left a voicemail asking her to call me back urgently, but she hasn't responded. I also tried reaching out to her sister, Emma, 28F. Emma and I had been close during my marriage to Tanya. She was like the little sister I never had, and we'd kept in sporadic contact even after the divorce. Emma seemed surprised to hear from me and said she'd try to get in touch with Tanya. Now I'm stuck. Do I go to the police? Do I confront Tanya directly? Do I change the locks and pretend this never happened? I'm angry and hurt, but I'm also worried. This behavior isn't like the Tanya I knew. Is she in some kind of trouble? Is there something going on that I don't know about? I keep replaying our relationship in my mind, wondering if I missed some signs. Was Tanya unhappy in ways I never realized? Did the divorce hit her harder than she let on? Or is this something new that's happened since we split up? I'm also grappling with my own feelings. Seeing Tanya in our old house, acting like she still lived there, has brought up a lot of emotions I thought I dealt with. I remember the good times we had in that house, the dinner parties, the lazy Sunday mornings, the plans we made for the future. But I also remember the arguments, the growing silences, the feeling of drifting apart. Part of me is tempted to just change the locks and try to forget this ever happened. But I know that's not a real solution. Whatever is going on with Tanya, it's serious enough that she's willing to break the law. Can I really just ignore that? At the same time, the thought of confronting her or going to the police makes me queasy. Despite everything, I still care about Tanya. I don't want to see her get into trouble. But I also can't just let her keep breaking into my house. I need advice on how to handle this situation. I never expected to be dealing with something like this 2 years after my divorce. Has anyone else experienced anything similar? What should I do next? How do I balance my anger and sense of violation with my lingering concern for someone who was once the most important person in my life? Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. The situation has developed in ways I never expected, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. Here's an update on the situation. After much deliberation and encouragement from many of you, I decided to confront Tanya directly before involving the police. It took several attempts, but I finally managed to get her on the phone. The conversation was not at all what I expected. As soon as I mentioned the house, Tanya broke down crying. Through her sobs, she confessed that she'd been coming to the house whenever I was away on business trips. Her reason left me speechless. She claimed she was homeless and had nowhere else to go. According to Tanya, she lost her job 6 months ago and couldn't afford rent anymore. She'd been couch surfing with friends, but didn't want to burden them for too long. She knew my work schedule from our mutual friends in the film industry and took advantage of my absences to have a temporary roof over her head. I was stunned. This was Tanya we're talking about, the woman who had a promising career in marketing when we divorced. The woman who always had a 5-year plan and a backup for her backup plan. How had things gone so wrong for her? As Tanya continued to talk, more details emerged. She admitted that she'd been struggling with depression even before our divorce. The stress of her high-powered job, combined with the collapse of our marriage, had taken a greater toll on her than anyone realized. After we split, she threw herself into her work, taking on more responsibilities and working longer hours. But instead of fulfilling her, the job left her feeling empty and burnt out. About 8 months ago, Tanya said, she made a crucial mistake at work that cost her company a major client. Instead of owning up to it, she tried to cover it up. When the truth came out, she was fired on the spot. The shock of losing her job, combined with her already fragile mental state, sent her into a downward spiral. Too ashamed to tell her family and friends what had happened, Tanya pretended everything was fine. She lived off her savings for a while, but between her high-rent apartment and her attempts to maintain her previous lifestyle, the money ran out quickly. That's when she started couch surfing, making excuses about renovations in her apartment or fumigation to explain why she couldn't go home. Despite my sympathy for her situation, I was still angry. I told her that what she did was a serious violation of my privacy and trust. I explained that I had video evidence of her breaking in and that I had been considering going to the police. This made her panic, and she begged me not to report her. Tanya swore she never took anything valuable and always cleaned up after herself. She said she only ate food that was about to expire and replaced anything she used up. The dinner party, she explained, was a one-time thing when she was feeling particularly lonely and desperate for some normality in her life. I was torn. On one hand, I felt betrayed and violated. The house was supposed to be my safe space, my refuge after the divorce. Knowing that Tanya had been there, sleeping in my bed and using my things, felt like a huge breach of trust. On the other hand, I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. We may not be married anymore, but we shared 8 years of our lives together. It was hard to see her in such a desperate situation. After our call, I reached out to Emma, Tanya's sister, again. Emma confirmed Tanya's story and admitted she knew about the situation but was sworn to secrecy. She told me Tanya had been struggling with depression since our divorce and that losing her job had been the final straw. Emma had been trying to convince Tanya to move in with her, but Tanya's pride had gotten in the way. I spent several days mulling over what to do. Part of me wanted to help Tanya. After all, we had once promised to be there for each other in sickness and in health. But another part of me felt like that wasn't my responsibility anymore. We were divorced, and Tanya's problems weren't mine to solve. In the end, I decided on a middle ground. I told Tanya she had 2 weeks to find a new place to live. I offered to pay for a month's rent at a cheap apartment to help her get back on her feet. It's not much, but it's all I can afford right now. I also strongly encouraged her to tell her family the whole truth and to seek professional help for her depression. In the meantime, I've changed all the locks and upgraded my security system. I also informed our mutual friends about the situation and asked them not to share my travel schedule with anyone anymore. I'm still processing everything that's happened. Part of me feels like I'm being too soft, but another part remembers the good times we shared and wants to help. Am I making a mistake by not reporting her? Should I be doing more to help, or am I already doing too much? I keep thinking about the Tanya I knew, strong, independent, always in control. It's hard to reconcile that image with the broken, desperate woman I talked to on the phone. I wonder if I should have seen the signs of her depression during our marriage. Could I have done something differently? At the same time, I'm trying to maintain some emotional distance. Tanya's problems are not my responsibility, and I can't let myself get too involved. I have my own life to live and my own future to think about. I'll keep you all updated as the situation develops. Thanks again for all your support and advice. It's been incredibly helpful to have this community to turn to during this bizarre and difficult time. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and the situation with Tanya has taken an unexpected turn. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened, but I'll do my best to explain. First, some good news. Tanya moved out of my house as agreed. She found a small studio apartment, and I kept my word about helping with the first month's rent. I thought that would be the end of it, but life had other plans. About a week after Tanya moved out, I received a frantic call from her sister Emma. She asked if I had seen or heard from Tanya. Apparently, Tanya hadn't shown up for a family dinner and wasn't answering her phone. Given recent events, Emma was worried. I hadn't heard from Tanya since she moved out, but Emma's concern was contagious. Despite everything that had happened, I found myself driving to Tanya's new apartment to check on her. When I got there, I found the door unlocked and Tanya passed out on the floor. I called an ambulance immediately. At the hospital, we discovered that Tanya had overdosed on sleeping pills. The doctors managed to save her, but it was a close call. When she regained consciousness, she broke down and confessed everything. It turns out, Tanya's story about losing her job was only partially true. She had lost her job, but not 6 months ago. It had happened right after our divorce. The real reason? She had developed a gambling addiction. Tanya revealed that she had been struggling with depression even before our divorce. After we split, she turned to online gambling as a distraction. It started innocently enough, a few dollars here and there on online poker games. But it quickly spiraled out of control. She was staying up all night gambling, using her work computer to place bets during the day. Her performance at work suffered, and she was eventually fired for neglecting her duties. By the time she started breaking into my house, she was deep in debt to online casinos and loan sharks. She had pawned most of her valuable possessions and was truly homeless. The night she overdosed, she had received threatening messages from one of her creditors. I was shocked. How had I missed all the signs? We may have grown apart, but I never imagined Tanya was capable of hiding something so significant. I remembered how she used to joke about my poker nights with the guys, saying gambling was a waste of money. Had that been a cover for her own addiction? The attempted suicide was Tanya's rock bottom. She realized she needed help and couldn't continue living this way. The hospital has referred her to a rehab program that deals with both gambling addiction and depression. Now, I'm faced with a difficult decision. Tanya has asked me to be her emergency contact during her recovery process. She says I'm the only person she trusts completely, despite everything that's happened. Emma is willing to help, but she travels a lot for work and can't always be available. Part of me wants to help. Despite everything, I still care about Tanya's well-being. We shared 8 years of our lives together, and those feelings don't just disappear. I remember the good times, how she supported me when I was struggling to break into the film industry, how she nursed me back to health when I had a bad case of the flu. Can I really turn my back on her now, when she's at her lowest point? But another part feels like this is crossing a line. We're divorced, and her actions over the past few months have seriously violated my trust. I'm worried that getting involved in her recovery might blur the boundaries we've established since our divorce. What if she starts to depend on me too much? What if it prevents both of us from moving on with our lives? I'm torn between my residual feelings for Tanya, my desire to help someone in need, and my need to protect myself and move on with my life. What would you do in my situation? Am I obligated to help my ex-wife through this crisis? Or would it be healthier for both of us if I maintained my distance? This whole situation has brought up a lot of complicated emotions. I find myself thinking about our marriage, wondering if there were signs I missed. Could I have done something to help Tanya before things got this bad? Or was this inevitable, regardless of what I did? I appreciate any advice you can offer. This situation has become far more complex than I ever imagined, and I'm struggling to find the right path forward. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share the final resolution to this complicated situation. After much soul-searching and discussions with friends and family, I decided to be Tanya's emergency contact during her rehab. It wasn't an easy decision, but I felt it was the right thing to do given our history and the severity of her situation. The rehab program lasted 2 months, during which I had limited contact with Tanya. The facility kept me updated on her progress, and I spoke with her therapist a few times. It was a challenging period, but I'm glad I was able to provide some support. Tanya completed the program successfully. When she got out, we had a long, honest conversation. She apologized profusely for her actions and thanked me for my help. She also made it clear that she understood our relationship couldn't go back to what it was before. During our talk, Tanya shared more about her struggle with gambling addiction. She told me it started as a way to cope with the stress of our divorce and her high-pressure job. What began as innocent online poker games quickly escalated into an all-consuming addiction. She'd stay up all night gambling, using her work computer to place bets during the day. It was a vicious cycle that eventually cost her her job and nearly her life. Hearing her story made me realize how little I knew about addiction. I always thought of addicts as people who couldn't control themselves, but Tanya's experience showed me how insidious and gradual the process can be. It made me more empathetic, not just to Tanya but to anyone struggling with addiction. We've established some healthy boundaries. Tanya is living with her sister Emma now and is focused on her recovery. She's attending regular Gamblers Anonymous meetings and therapy sessions. She's also started a job training program to get back into the workforce, though in a different field than before. As for me, I've learned a lot from this experience. I've realized the importance of setting clear boundaries, even with people we care about. I've also learned to trust my instincts more. If something feels off, it probably is. I've decided to sell the house and move to a new place. Too many memories, both good and bad, are associated with it. It's time for a fresh start. I'm looking at apartments closer to the city, where I'll be surrounded by the energy and creativity that drew me to filmmaking in the first place. Tanya and I are on cordial terms now, but we're not close friends. We check in with each other occasionally, but we're both focused on moving forward with our separate lives. I'm proud of the progress she's made and hope she continues on her path to recovery. This whole experience has been a roller coaster, but I feel like I've come out stronger on the other side. It's taught me a lot about compassion, forgiveness, and the importance of mental health. While I wouldn't wish this experience on anyone, I'm grateful for the lessons it's taught me. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this journey. It's meant more than you know. Here's to new beginnings and healthier futures for both Tanya and me.